week's episode of the 77 Group. My name is Mitch Goddard, and I'm happy to welcome you along with my partner Frank Leone. And we are coming to you from the iconic and historic Granada Hotel and Bistro right here in beautiful downtown San Luis Obispo. And as we launch into today's episode, a little something about me. I am a industry leader, both from the Department of Defense to food, hospitality, financial services, and healthcare. And I've had the great privilege and honor to lead some of the most high-performing teams in all those areas. And it's really been a privilege to do so. And along the way, I took lots of notes and as to what is effective, what to avoid, so that as a team we can achieve great things. And what a great thing it was to be the leader of all these teams. And with that, I'd like to introduce my friend Frank. Go ahead, Frank.
I'm Frank Leone, and my pleasure to be serving as co-founder and partner with Mitch Goddard on the 77 Group. And the reason that really pulled us together is over and above the fact we're good personal friends and been professional colleagues for a long time, is that I have nothing but the greatest respect for Mitch's extraordinary leadership skills and understanding. And my area of expertise is communication, and we felt that the two of them would blend very well together and decided to start a group. My background is I retired about 3 years ago. 2017, officially April 2017. But I got an itch to get back and do something, and I wanted to give back. That was probably my primary aim at this point in my career. Is I've learned a lot over many, many decades, and how nice it would be to do whatever I can to share what I've learned with others that may gain some value from it. So Mitch and I forged together a partnership, and we called it the 77 Group. And I bet you're asking, if you haven't watched earlier episodes, why the 77 Group? Mitch, why?
Well, as time went on and our relationship grew, and Frank and I, enjoyed time together, long drives in the car and that kind of thing, we found that we had several things in common, but one thing specific that is very near and dear to both of us, and that is, in the year 1977, we both, within a 5-day period, met our spouses of 4 decades or thereabouts. And so that's pretty meaningful to us. And with all the other interests that we share and all the commonalities that we share, that's the one thing that really anchors our heart, not only to our beautiful brides, but also just that common thread that we have and share. So with that, we came up with the 77 Group, and sharing our leadership and communication insights, and do it with our viewers through our books and other online activities, and that's what brought us here today.
When Mitch referred to long drives in the car, what he neglected to mention was we didn't go very far. We were just in the car a long time. Quite specifically, we were trying to drive, probably 90 miles or so, through LA to meet with some other people, and there was massive wildfires going on at all sides of the freeway, and traffic ground to an incredible halt. So yes, we had a long drive, but it wasn't a long drive if you measure it by distance. It was a hell of a long drive if you measure it by time in the car. And what are you going to do? You learn a little bit about the other person during all those hours. I want to tell you a little bit about why we're doing the YouTube plan. This is the 4th episode, and we've shared this in previous weeks, so I won't go into too much depth, but it's always the chance somebody's watching just this episode for some reason, or this is their first one. But by and large, I've just written a book. By now, the 4th episode, it should already be out. And it's a book entitled 77 Ways to Establish More Effective, or to be a more exceptional communicator, enhancing your professional and personal relationships. 77 relatively short, hard-hitting chapters on different aspects of communication. Mitch has a sister book coming out in a couple months associated with effective leadership. And the YouTube channel is all about taking one of those 77 chapters in each book each week, i.e. 154 weeks by the time we're done, and cover them in some depth. So that's what the YouTube plan is to sort of support the book. If you have the book and are watching the episodes, that's the optimal arrangement, but if you don't have the book, you don't necessarily have to have it. You can hopefully still get an awful lot out of the episodes, and you don't have to watch the episodes if you have the book. You can just go with the book. But in a perfect world, go with both and combine them and see what we might be able to teach you along the way. So that's that. I want to add one thing before Mitch begins his second presentation, what is our episode number 4, is that a special thing that we're doing is asking those that are watching if they have a question to ask us, to send it to us in the comments section that are on the bottom of the YouTube screen. Let us know your name and where you're from, and we'll give an award out to the best question of the week, and we're also going to give a second award out to the best fun question of the week, however you define fun. It'll be interesting to see what comes in. We're going to publish all the questions, not the fun ones, but the content ones, on the website with appropriate answers. So whatever question you have, that answer may be of value to many other people, not only around the country, but around the globe. So that's some overview things, and let me turn it over to Mitch, and you can talk about being honest no matter what.
Well, and that's from chapter 2 of my book, really focusing on the first 10 chapters, focusing on the basics. And like in any relationship, honesty, Ben Franklin said, is the best policy, and I think that's indisputable, especially in the role of a leader, as you seek to gain credibility and to effectually lead others. You've got to have come from a foundation that the things that you're telling your people, the information you're sharing, and the insights that you're sharing are true. They are honest, and with that, people know that over time, you've established yourself as an honest person. They can look at you with credibility and with no doubt follow you wherever you're leading them. So with that, my first tip this week is be honest with yourself. Be true to yourself. And what I mean by that is, as you approach whatever the challenge is, whatever the opportunity is, whatever the topic or issue at hand is with you personally or with your people collectively, first of all, check yourself and say, where do I stand on this? How do I want to approach this situation? And how am I going to bring this situation into the realm of my team? Or if it's just one person, how am I going to address this situation with them on an individual basis? So check yourself first. Understand where you stand on the issue. Be honest with yourself. Is this something you're really up for, or do you need to either delegate or use a collective of talent that you've surrounded yourself with, hopefully effectively, to say, folks, I don't know where to take this. How do we move this forward? Because if you try to fake it, they're going to see right through you. And that credibility bank account that you're trying to establish with your team is going to start to dwindle down to nothing.
Mitch, I have a question for you.
Sure.
In terms of being honest with yourself, whether it's you, Mitch, we're talking about, or just what you've learned over time, what do you think are the most common reasons that people fall short of being honest with themselves?
Well, I think when people start to put undue pressure on themselves, one of the things, and I've done a fair amount of leadership development, executive performance work, even working with physicians, coaching physicians up. One of the things that I come across, I don't care what level of leadership you're in, there seems to be unnecessary pressure that people put on themselves in a leadership role that I've got to have all the answers. I'm the one that's got to be able to deliver a favorable outcome. And sometimes if it's beyond your scope, it makes more sense to turn to your team and say, hey guys, what do you think? What do we need to do here? And so get over that pride for that period of time, and use the resources that you were smart enough to surround yourself with, and attack the problem with the collective brain power instead of just trying to figure it out yourself. And chances are, if you're unprepared or unable on yourself, which is fine, because nobody knows everything, if you put yourself through that, there's a chance that you're going to stumble, fall, and your team is going to, wonder about your credibility as a leader.
Okay, well, very good. So it sounds like humility, humility, humility.
Amen.
That's what I'm hearing.
Times 10. Yep.
Okay, so tip number two.
So make honesty a characteristic of your team culture or your organizational culture. It's important that everyone involved understand that the expectation always is to be honest. Now, for instance, an example might be we've got a deadline of Friday at 5 o'clock to get XYZ done. And if you're not going to hit that deadline, then just step out and say, hey boss, hey Mitch, hey leader, whoever it is, I'm going to need help hitting that deadline. And when you are going to take that position, once you realize it, because you're being honest with yourself, then there's still plenty of opportunity to either provide you with resources, assistance, whatever it is you need, or to, if necessary, extend the deadline if it's more reasonable to do so, because you've informed everybody, being honest, sharing some candor with your coworkers and with your leader, so that ultimately there's not a big empty space where your deliverable was supposed to be at the time it was supposed to be there. What questions do you have with that?
How do you, what advice would you give the people that are looking in on this to take making honesty as an imperative to specific action steps to get there? In other words, it's one thing to be leading a team and say, well, I want all you people on the team to be honest. Sure. But what do you do to really make it happen?
Well, I think, and I'm going to touch on this in a few moments, to say that whenever you have an opportunity, not only as a leader, but just as a person who's got friends, family, loved ones that you deal with on a regular basis, to recognize, and don't go overboard, but acknowledge and make somewhat of a big deal when people are honest, especially when they're honest about something that's a little uncomfortable or maybe even a little painful. So to recognize people for their candor, for their honesty, but also model it. So as a leader, again, it all goes back to what you want from your people. You've got to deliver to your people. And if you as a leader are finding an issue where you make a mistake, you make the wrong call or decision, or you take your team down a path that, well, we got to reroute and go in a different direction, stand up, take accountability, be honest, because there's not a whole lot of arrows that are going to be flying at you if you humbly come forward, admit your mistake, be honest, whatever the situation is. But I'll tell you, the arrows are going to be flinging if you're not honest, or you lead your team down a path and say, well, you kids fix it, while you created a big mess for them.
It seems inevitable to me, and you're the expert, not me, but it seems inevitable to me, especially as you look about the world about us and see people in prominent leadership positions, is when they are dishonest, then it almost becomes imperative for everybody on the team to be equally as dishonest. You have no choice. If the leader's dishonest, then everybody on the team has to follow and suit, or else they're out the door.
Well, so, yeah, and that's a good point, Frank, because again, it all comes back to modeling. Everybody, remember, as a leader, all eyes are on you, whether you know it or not. And people are going to, they're going to assess and evaluate every raised eyebrow, every expression, your tone of voice, your body language. Everything about you is going to send a message out to the people you lead. And as you model, so they will imitate, because you're setting the standard. And honesty is critical for any relationship. If you want to avoid toxicity, stay honest with your people. If you want dishonesty, then practice dishonesty, because that is and we'll talk briefly at the end here about the consequences of dishonesty. As you model, is what you will attract. It's that simple.
Right, and I'm sure you're going to get to it, but my first thought when you were saying that was that dishonest people may survive for a while, but at the end of the day, it's crash and burn.
Amen. It is a short-lived life.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
No question about it. Tip number 3.
So again, I think it's important. We talked last week about legacies, or how you want to be remembered, or how do you want to be known. I think one of the most foundational pillars that you can put in place that is going to build or have a lot to say about the reputation you're building for yourself is be known as a truth teller, not only to the people you lead, but to your peers, to the people you answer to every day, to your spouse, your kids, your friends and families across the board. If people know that they can come to you and get the truth, get an honest response to whatever is in play at the moment, then you're going to have instant credibility that is lasting, provided you continue to always tell the truth and be honest.
Okay, that's a good one. How about tip number 4?
So tip number 4, again, kind of going back to what I touched on a moment ago, show appreciation to people in your organization that you're leading. Just like with your kids. We want our kids to live the golden rules, and obviously honesty is one of them. And we want to model that. We want to show appreciation every time little Nikki is honest and tells the truth. Our inclination, our human nature, when at least when we're small, until we learn better, is to kind of have our hands behind our back and shuffle our feet and kind of come up with a story. And as parents, we know that the great reward is when our kids get over that hump, and we can help them get over that hump and remain honest by showing even the smallest reward, a hug, a kiss, some kind of verbal praise that says, yep, Melissa is always honest, and she's always truthful and to the point. And people over time will start to believe that, yeah, I am that way. I need to now live up to that always. And that helps reinforce it. So show that appreciation, reinforce the behavior, and make honesty a character that is everybody wants to be known for.
A thought that I just had, and not something I really know anything about, so I'm interested in what you have to say about it. But it strikes me you were talking about, there may be an offspring that tells the truth about something and you commend them on it and so forth. I'm thinking the other way. If there's an offspring, a 9-year-old child, that lies about something,
right,
it would seem to me as a parent that you can go in one of two directions. You can scathe that child for their lying, which in my opinion would only mean to be more likely to lie in the future because they want to avoid that negative consequence.
Right.
Or you can put it in a different context. If you agree with me on that, what are some of the different contexts you can put that in so as not to put the lying person necessarily on the defensive?
Right, and great point, because there are two sides of this, you can, there are leaders that say, well, there's really only two great motivators in life, and by and large it's true. It's either pain or pleasure, right? And if you want to I believe I agree with you, Frank, especially in the case of a young person, a young child or a young adult. If the result or the motivation is delivered in a painful way, well then the motivation turns into avoid the pain, take it a step higher, take that dishonesty a step further, where no one would ever think to go. Of course, that's a spiral, a death spiral that is almost impossible to recover with. It can only take time and healing to get there. But I think the old adage, you're going to get more with sugar than with something bitter. It all comes down to a teachable moment. When we're confronted with someone at any age who has made a conscious decision to be dishonest to us, then I think it is a reflection of sound, humble, and calm leadership to explain to the person what the consequences can be, what the virtues are for being honest, but and help them understand the value on both ends of that. And over time, I think if you're consistent with that message, that people, again, at any age, are going to find the logic in being honest, because frankly, being dishonest is too much work. It's way too much work to remember all the false paths and tales that you've woven over time. Whereas we just say, "Yep, I did it. I'm sorry. I'll try not to do it again." And but yeah, more of an application, I think, is going to of a softer application, a more loving application in any scenario, is going to bear more fruit than just breaking out the cat o' nine tails and inflicting pain for being dishonest.
I talk about dishonesty in my book as well in a slightly different context. But one of the things that I really point out is that dishonesty comes in multiple colors. And it's by no means limited to just falsification. There's so many other things. There's deception, there's silence when silence is not warranted.
Omission.
There's omission, of course. There's disingenuous things, et cetera, et cetera. There's not sharing information with certain people with certain others, but with certain others, et cetera, et cetera. So at least as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about this is a pretty broad definition that I don't know a whole lot of people that are chronic liars, but just about everybody I know somewhere along that continuum violates the honesty dictum in some manner at some point.
Yeah, and even to, exaggeration can be a form of deception. And, we grew up, or at least with the premise in some areas of our life that, it's just a little white lie.
Right.
And, it still is sending a message that number one, you're no longer fully credible, and I think number two, that maybe it is okay. And if we allow ourselves to not be faithful, and to use a kind of a biblical perspective, but if we're not going to be faithful in the little things, then we're not going to have an opportunity to be faithful in the big things, because people just won't let us. They won't look to us for anything bigger than that, because we've already proven we can't be trusted on the little things. So deception and lack of honesty can really find its roots in any number of ways, and at the end, it's toxic in any relationship.
Agreed. Okay, anything else you want to add on today's topic?
Well, just that again, understand the consequences of being dishonest, but also understand the value and the virtues and the victories that are won every day, when you're straightforward with the people in your life, straightforward with the teams that you're privileged to lead, and don't ever lose sight of that. That is a privilege, and when you view it as such and you value it as such, you will treat it for the great privilege it is, and you won't allow petty things like being dishonest or lying to people tarnish that or hurt those relationships.
Okay, a couple quick reminders here at the end. Again, a reminder that we greatly value your questions. Please send them in the comments section of your YouTube opportunity. Number two is subscribers are extremely important to us, so I compel you to please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and it just helps our YouTube profile, and we're newcomers to this world, so your help would be greatly appreciated. And thirdly, along those lines, we understand that the YouTube gods really like their channels to have a lot of likes. So if you like this presentation, please do hit the like button so we know. And I appreciate all that. We've talked about the books in passing a couple times. Just a couple comments, Mitch?
Well, and also just to expand on the YouTube piece, yeah, we are new at this. This is our 4th episode, but we've surrounded ourselves with a bunch of smart folks, and we're very thankful for that. So again, if you like what you see, hit the like button, subscribe to us so you'll get alerted every time we bring something new to the table, and you'll really benefit, I think. Hopefully, you'll get a few nuggets out of this each week. Going to our books, again, YouTube and our books, great companions to really get a full feel for our subject matters. Frank's book on communication, perfecting your communication skills and being effective in both your personal and professional relationships. That is probably already out by the time you're seeing this. The due date was mid-April of 2020, so those of you that already have a copy of that in your hand and you're following along, congratulations. You're going to get a lot of value out of that. Frank is one of the truly gifted communicators, and that was one of the first things that drew me to Frank, as I was this little face in the crowd at one of his seminars way back when in a hotel, in a very nice hotel, by the way, the Hyatt there at the Landing, and
Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia, and we had a great time. And at that moment I said, this guy has a lot of credibility and I need to stick close to him. But his book is out in April. If you've got it, congratulations. My book will be out in a few months, probably in the summertime. 77 tips for exceptional leadership and how to craft and inspire people to become great in the roles that they play in your organization. And our next episode will be
that's me.
On the topic of communication. What do we got, Frank?
Episode number 5 will be my 3rd presentation. It's entitled "Never Express Anger in Writing," and it's sort of a fun topic. And I have some good anecdotes for you, and self-effacing at that. So I think it's going to be a great session. It hasn't been recorded yet, but it'll be the one right after this one on the queue. So. You'll be able to see that as well. Once again, want to thank the wonderful Granada Hotel for letting us host this in their beautiful foyer here on the 2nd floor. And we hope to do a lot more work with the Granada as time goes on. And then finally, Mitch and I thought it would be a nice way to end all of our episodes by sharing a personal thought, a personal value that we have with all those that are kind enough to tune in. First 3 episodes we've done, and here we are at number 4. Mitch, what is your final thought?
Well, I'm going to throw a little scriptural reference at you, and that is from Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17. And the message here is that iron sharpens iron. And just like in my relationship with Frank, I think his skills, his discipline, sharpen my skills and my discipline, and I think together we help elevate each other, make each other better. And that's my tip to you this week. Share of yourself with others. take and accept that same from others, and together you both can achieve greatness.
Very good. And my final thought of the day is to forgive and to terminate any grudges that you may have. Life is too short and life is too valuable to go through it with that negativity festering in your system all the time. And I have found two things when I have, fortunately enough, forgiven grudges. Number one is how exceptionally gracious the other party always seems to be, and understanding and appreciative, and it goes by the wayside. The other thing is that some of the best relationships I've ever had in my life emanated from a rocky beginning. But sometimes that rocky beginning is a product of the two of you being so much alike that you come to heads on some issue. But when you finally get down to it, you're so much alike and there is a compatibility there that's very positive. So my thought for the day is let go of those grudges. It's a negativity that we don't need to have hanging around our neck for the rest of our lives.
Amen. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate you tuning in this week. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for our future episodes. Coming to you from the historic Granada Hotel and Bistro in San Luis Obispo. This is Mitch Goddard signing out.
Frank Leone, see you next week. Thank you very much for being part of it.